The former CBS News chief Washington correspondent and Face the Nation moderator Bob Schieffer is a native of Fort Worth, Texas. Bob, he started there as a reporter more than a half century ago, and Bob is now a CBS News contributor, and he joins us now from Washington. Thank you so much, Bob. I just want to get your first reaction when you heard the news about what happened in Dallas. What did you think?
Well, the nation is going through a very difficult time now, Anne Marie. I mean, we wake up every morning thinking, what can be worse than what happened yesterday, whether we're talking about politics or the weather or race relations, and then something worse than what happened yesterday happens. So it's a very, very difficult time that the nation is going through right now. But what I want to emphasize here is this: what happened in Dallas is much different than some of these other violent events that we've been seeing happen. We don't know yet how many people are involved in this. We know that one man who has been killed when the police killed him with a bomb placed on that robot, he said, that he was acting alone, but we don't know that yet. And what the Dallas police chief and what the mayor said when they said, we're not going to tell you anything about the other suspects that are under arrest, and there are 3 of them as I understand it. What that says to me is they think there are more people involved. And so the first thing that has to happen here, we have to determine, was this a carefully planned military-style operation, of a classic ambush, where the shooters were put on the high ground and then waited for their prey to march into their line of fire? We know one thing: whoever fired these shots knew how to operate the weapon. This was not just, spraying the area with bullets. They picked out who they were going to shoot, and they shot them. They picked out police, and they shot the police. What we don't know yet is whether this shooter, who is now dead, was the only shooter, or were these other suspects also involved. Clearly, police are checking all leads now, and I think the information they are not putting out is as important as the information that we now know on the record. Not until until the police chief in that recent news conference said that the shooter that they later killed said, I don't like white people, I don't like police, Black Lives Matter. That was really the first indication we had that this wasn't somehow connected to some of these shootings. Up until that point, Dallas police were not ruling out anything, including foreign terrorists. Now, we are beginning to see some connections, but this investigation is far from over.
Yeah. What do you make of that motivation that the police chief said that he was angry for or about Black Lives Matter, that he wanted to shoot white people, but more specifically white police officers? I spoke earlier to the CEO of the NAACP, Cornell William Brooks, and he said we are living in a time that he called it the post-millennial civil rights movement. This is a post-millennial civil rights movement. You covered the original civil rights movement, and it was a tumultuous time here in this country. How would you compare the mood then and now?
Well, I also covered the shooting of President Kennedy in Dallas, and also the Vietnam riots that came along. What is different now is with the coming of social media, I think our whole culture is changing, Anne Marie. I mean, we have become a more impatient society. We've become more demanding. We have become ruder to one another. It's almost as if people consider themselves an island, and they feel like that their fate is in their hands, and that there's no teamwork. But, we see this in everything from road rage to how people treat people in restaurants when they get their order wrong. Things are changing, and it is just another example of the great frustration that various factions are feeling. I mean, how could black people not be enraged when they see some of these shootings that are taking place? But the other part of it is the cops are scared to death too. They know how powerful these weapons are, and I think one reason they're on such an hair trigger feeling is that, you know, they're worried they're going to get shot before they can shoot the person that they've accosted. Just the patience level on all fronts seems to be shrinking, and too often we're falling into some sort of a mob mentality, and that's never rational, and it certainly is never good.
Yes, there seems to be a shortage of civility on a daily basis. And when you mentioned, you know, the officers being scared, I thought about the video that came out of St. Paul, Minnesota, where the woman in the seat beside her boyfriend who was dying seemed calmer and more in control than the police officer. He seemed terrified.
Yes. You know, it is really, really difficult to be a good cop. I used to be a police reporter. That's how I spent many of my early years as a reporter. I was the night police reporter at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And, you know, people have to be carefully trained. They have to be cool, and they have to, you know, show every patience, but they also have to be well trained, because, you know, sometimes I'd be around some of these characters. I wanted to hit them. I didn't, of course, because they were just awful people. That's not what we're seeing in some of these shootings that are happening now, that we're seeing that people are taking pictures of. But in those cases, most of the time, there was no excuse. But everybody is so worried and so concerned. That's why they're on this kind of hair trigger mentality right now. Shoot first, ask questions later. And you're seeing this on both sides. This is going to be a very, very difficult period. The ironic thing about the Dallas situation is the Dallas Police Department has been very forward-thinking. They have a mayor who enjoys wide bipartisan support. They have done a lot of community policing. And yet, ironically, this all seems to happen there. But we need to find out a lot more, number one, about who these other suspects are, because if it turns out this was some sort of a carefully planned conspiracy, how large is this organization that planned it? Who are they? What is their ultimate motive here? And right now, we just don't know the answers to those questions. Yeah,
it's very true. You know, once upon a time, after a shooting like this, I think the national conversation would go automatically to gun control. But now, you know, these sort of things are so sort of multi-layered. There are so many issues. What should we be talking about in this aftermath? Is it gun control? Is it race relations? Is it policing? Is it everything?
It's all of the above. There's no question about it. These are weapons of war. We have got to find some way to make them less available to people who want to take matters into their own hands. Many times these people are totally deranged. Their thinking makes no sense to the rest of us because it makes no sense. They are deranged. But the fact that these weapons are out there is obviously a part of this conversation. Police training is very, very important and very much an important part of this conversation. And I think one thing that stuck with me today was hearing the Dallas mayor when he said words matter. He said that early in this. And that's something that all of us have to remember. Words matter. There are consequences. And whether we're police officers, whether we're people in the various communities, whether we're reporters, we all have to be very, very careful not to inflame what is an increasingly dangerous situation.
Indeed. Bob Schieffer in Washington. Always a pleasure talking to you, Bob.
Thank you, ma'am.